I'll hand over to Harriet. If you want to give us some of your top tips.
I'm just going to outline, I guess, my 5 kind of key tips that I would strongly recommend, thinking about right before you're even applying for a role. So my first one is making sure you have a detailed CV and cover letter. So it's, that's kind of your path to get through to that next stage. And I think the main call out is identifying why you want the role. I receive hundreds and hundreds of CVs every single week, for various different roles. But I would probably say, only 15% of them actually say to me why they want the role, what they could bring to the role, and their understanding of the role as well. They're 3 really important bits that we want to know and we want to read about. So taking that time in actually researching what the role is, reflecting on that, and actually thinking what you could bring to the role, and why that's ticking the boxes for you. Why have you clicked apply? Is it because you're really, really interested in learning more about that specific business area? Is it because you think you've got the correct skills for the role? There's loads of things that you can pull out. And for us as a talent team, it's really important that we read that, and we get that from that first initial CV and cover letter. With your cover letter, we want to pull out all of the good experience that you've got, and what you've learned from that experience. What's that made you have? Has it got, have you got really good communication skills? Are you really organized? Have you worked in a team before? Highlighting that, is so important. We're probably going to be reading hundreds of CVs for one position, so we need to have everything kind of just there in black and white and obvious to us. So really make sure you're pulling out those kind of key soft skills as well. We appreciate, as graduates, you might not have 2 pages worth of experience, so we want to be able to understand you as a person. So that's kind of my number one. My number 2, once you've kind of applied, and you're successful and you've got through to an interview, a lot of interviews will go through kind of your CV and your experience, but then it will lead on to your competency based questions. And this is a really good chance for you to shine. Put all of your kind of experience into practice, and then pull out all of those key examples that you have experienced. So communication, when was the last time that you had to communicate really effectively, and what did that look like? How did that, what did the success look like from that? And having those clear examples is something that we always look for. And 9 times out of 10, the candidates that don't go through are the candidates that couldn't go into detail about a scenario, weren't able to pull out, analyze that scenario as well. What worked well, what didn't work well. If you could do it again, how would you make it different? So being really analytical, and really self-reflective of your previous experience, is what we definitely look for. So once you've kind of got through that part, we typically ask for a presentation of a task within our interviews. We're doing this more and more now, given kind of the past year. Being able to present something on Teams is super easy. So we think it's a really, really good way of demonstrating, number 1, your presentation skills, but number 2, putting your thoughts into either a SWOT analysis, it could be, and presenting that back to the hiring team. So being prepared for this, practicing that, if it's practicing it with your housemates, if it's practicing it with your course mates, being super clear on what that presentation is going to look like. And then also be prepared for questions. The hiring teams love to ask questions. Talk me through, your thinking about this part. If you could do it a little bit differently, what would you do? I guess, that's pulling quite a key theme in. What we look for is that kind of analysis of yourself, and what you could do better for, the next time. We're always looking for people that can improve, and like I say, kind of reflect on their kind of own work. So that would be my number three. Number four, something again because of the pandemic, we've had to do all of our assessment centres online. So it's actually really different being part of an assessment centre through Teams, through Zoom. You're not in a room full of 70 odd people being able to communicate and interact. So actually, it's getting used to being on these types of calls, and with people that you don't know. So actually making that first conversation in a call, and just being comfortable with that. It's difficult, it's not a normal situation, but it's about remembering, you're being observed on your communication, your teamwork, you coming to decisions. So it is kind of stepping out of your comfort zone, but that's kind of another tip, actually just getting used to being on these types of calls. And then actually my last one is kind of pulls everything together, I guess, in the last 3 points, is actually just being very tech aware. The pandemic has flipped particularly my area of business, those recruitment processes on its head. We've never done things virtually. So being tech aware in terms of, that working camera, that working microphone, knowing your way around Zoom and Teams, that will make that interview feel a little bit less daunting, because then you don't find yourself in a bit of a panic thinking, I'm either on mute all the time, or your camera's not working. So just getting familiar with the tools, I think, is actually going to be a really useful tip, and hopefully, if you get invited to a few interviews, that will also build up your confidence as well. So I guess, overview, the recruitment process has definitely shifted over the last year because of the pandemic, but I actually do think it's for the better in terms of some of our processes. So hopefully, like I say, getting comfortable with being online, things being virtual, you should feel and see the success from that. So they're kind of that was a bit of a whistle stop tour of 5 kind of tips for the recruitment process.